Now we've come to the conclusion, that last piece of our essay structure. And just as the introduction is the first impression for your reader and very important, the conclusion is that last impression that you leave with your reader. So it's almost like the flip or reverse of the introduction. Rather than narrowing down to your main idea, you're actually going to start with your main idea and then broaden out and really reach out to your readers again. So at the beginning of your conclusion, you'll have a wrap up, and you're going to wrap it up by reviewing the overall argument. But you're writing it now with perspective that your readers have not only read your thesis, but they've read all the evidence that you've already provided, all of your supporting reasons. And then you're going to end with a so what? Why should your readers care? Or what should they think? What should they do? What should they say differently after reading your essay? Another thing that you can do at the end of your conclusion is to connect back to whatever you used as an introductory hook, and that can be very satisfying, kind of like when comedians circle back to the beginning of their set piece. So, as with the introduction and really the whole essay, think about your thesis, think about the purpose that you have for writing, and think about your audience. So if our thesis is pineapples on pizza can be delicious if properly balanced in terms of texture and flavor, we want to think about how to re-emphasize our thesis statement, how to re-emphasize our supporting points without repeating ourselves exactly. So you don't want to have any new supporting ideas. You're just reminding your reader of what you've said, because even though they've read all of it, you want to re-emphasize what was really, really important, those main ideas. But don't add anything new, because then you're changing the argument. You also want to think about how to leave your readers with a sense of completion, a sense of important takeaways. That's the so what. So, some hot tips and techniques. When you are writing your wrap-up, look at your thesis and topic sentences again and say to yourself, in other words, sometimes your wrap-up is actually going to be stronger than your original thesis. If so, consider revising your original thesis. And then for your so what, you might end with a call to action, right? What do you want your readers to do? You might end with a thought-provoking question, quotation, or statistic. You might tell a counterpoint story or circle back to your original story in the hook. Another thing to consider is ending with hope, a vision of how things could be better if your audience is persuaded by your argument and takes it seriously. Or you might even end with a warning of what might happen if they don't take it seriously. Some authors will do both. They'll have a warning and a hopeful vision at the end. So let's demonstrate. So I'm going to read through the whole paragraph and then we'll talk it through. So despite being a deal breaker in many pizza parties, pineapple does have a rightful place on pizza, right up there with pepperoni. While you cannot please everyone, more people would learn to appreciate or at least tolerate pineapple if those ordering or cooking the pizza are careful to balance out the textures and flavors carefully. Now, I want to make a couple notes. I can see that I used careful and carefully here. So if I were going from my rough draft to final draft, I would decide to drop one of those. You'll also notice that I really do like to use alliteration, or I keep using the pizza parties, pineapple, right? And so this is part of my personal writing style. If you find it a little annoying, I apologize. But you want to develop your voice. And I did a lot of writing features articles for my high school and college newspaper when I was young. And I have a little bit of that features writer voice. So you'll see that coming out here. But I want you to have that growth mindset too, that whatever you write here, you can change it, right? I had careful and carefully, so I would want to change those. All right, moving on. Thoughtful pairing would make pineapple less controversial. So the next time you find yourself battling it out over pizza instead of battling it out on the Xbox, order one pizza with pineapple plus something salty or spicy to balance it and see if you can't win some converts. You can always order a boring old cheese pizza for those who aren't willing to risk a taste adventure. So a few notes on this. The wrap up is from the beginning, despite a deal breaker, all the way to thoughtful pairing would make pineapple less controversial. And then the so what starts with so and then ends with adventure. A couple of things. Uh, One is that I decided to use the technique of going back to my introductory hook. So if you watch the video on how to write the introduction, you'll see that I'm using the scenario, the hypothetical scenario from my introduction, and I'm going back to it. Another thing is that I'm not saying I'm going to win everybody over. I'm saying that pineapple will be less controversial. So this is what's called kind of limiting the claim that I'm making. I can be more persuasive if I'm not saying I'm going to make everybody in the entire world love pineapple on a pizza. And you'll notice that I said when some converts, right? So I have a limited claim here. I'm not making my claim too extreme. The other thing I want to point out is that last sentence, I have to decide, am I going to alienate my readers? Am I only going to alienate people who aren't ever going to love pineapple and pizza? Well, fine. Maybe I don't want to worry about alienating the person I'll never persuade no matter what. Or I might decide, ooh, yeah, that might be alienating them. So keep those kinds of questions in mind. There's no black or white, right or wrong answer. Just be thoughtful about it. So it is your turn now to think about your conclusion. How are you going to wrap up your essay, remind your reader of your main ideas without being overly repetitive, but still avoiding adding in new supporting claims because that would belong in the body of the essay. And then finally, how are you going to leave them with a satisfying conclusion, a sense of how to move on from there?